Kia ora, David.
Kia ora.
Just before I start, just acknowledging the passing of your candidate, Neil Christensen. There was a sad part of your campaign and no doubt, impacted on your wider ACT whānau. But it's a historical night for ACT. So how's the vibe in the camp?
Well, first of all, thank you for acknowledging Neil, and he was a tremendous person, and I think it's really nice that you start that way. We have had a pretty good night. We've had the most successful night for ACT in the, I think, 10 elections now that the party's contested, so that's very good. To see Brooke van Velden elected to be the MP for Tamaki is very good for Tamaki's representation. I think she'll be a fabulous local MP, but it also shows that the ACT party is a lot bigger than people might have thought.
So, big night last night?
Yeah, it was really fun. It was nice just to be with all of the people that have worked so hard for a very long time. And I think often in democracies it's forgotten how hard people work. Putting up signs, giving up their weekends, candidates give up their privacy. It's a big thing for a lot of people.
So there's an interesting dynamic that's happened with ACT, and of course the Greens have picked up some new candidates. So that's kind of, I guess, a little bit of polar opposites. What's that saying about Aotearoa New Zealand now?
Look, I think that if it means that we're getting honest, healthy debate about our future, then that's needed, and that's very good news. If it means that we're polarising, then I guess that's bad news. But I just look at the individual people. I think Brooke has won Tamaki because she's worked hard, because she's a good person, because she cares and listens to people. And she started doing electorate clinics as if she was the local MP before she was the local MP, and I'm sure she'll continue doing them, and she'll be very good at it.
Speaking of debate, of course, the referendum around Te Tiriti you suggested was a bottom line. What's happening with that?
Well, let's see how those discussions go, but it's certainly critical that New Zealand is able to discuss what the treaty means in 2023. And it's not about whether we value the treaty. Of course we do. The question is, do we agree with the interpretation that's been slapped on it in the last 30 years? I think a lot of people have got confused. They think that if you don't agree with the way that the courts and certain interest groups have interpreted the treaty since 1987, you don't agree with the treaty. Actually, we're pro-treaty. We just don't like the divisive way it's been interpreted lately.
Well, part of your action could be considered to be contributing to that divisiveness, I guess.
Well, I don't really see how promoting universal human rights and inclusion is divisive. The fact that we've been continually accused of divisiveness, but when challenged, none of the accusers can give us any examples of why they think we're being divisive. I think that probably tells you all you need to know.
The Indigenous rights, of course, the Declaration of Indigenous Rights is an acknowledgement that that hasn't really worked in terms of the human rights issues. So that's an ongoing conversation that a lot of people are proposing needs to be addressed.
Yeah, but what's the UN ever done for you?
Well, it's actually become a voice for Indigenous people in terms of that declaration. But I guess these are sort of the things that will be teased out in the next few years.
It's become a voice, but here's the thing. How do you get the roads fixed so you can get around the country, especially from remote areas? How do you get kids to school?
How do you bounce from the Universal Declaration of Indigenous Rights to roads?
Because I asked you, what's the UN ever done for you? And you said they've given you a voice. I said, well, here's some practical things people actually need. And that's the contrast.
Okay, so if Mr Luxon rules out a referendum, that's just the kinds of challenges around compromise.
Then we rule it in, and that's how the negotiation will go.
Did you know that there was a resounding no in Australia around the referendum?
I hadn't seen the final results. I'd heard that was going to be the case from the early results.
It's not looking too positive for the yes.
Well, I think that's very positive for Australia because they have decided that they want their constitution to be devoid of racial discrimination, and that's how any country's constitution should be.
I think it demonstrates that they don't really acknowledge the special place of their Indigenous people. That's what that says.
And nor should they. They should respect the rights of each individual human being. We've got to stop putting labels on people and saying that some people are born special and others aren't. I mean, I'm sorry, that's just so gross. We've got to stop doing it.
What's gross is their kind of how they're misrepresented across all those indicators, similar to other colonised people.
And that's why we got to get better roads.
Not like individuals.
We got to get better roads because people who live in remote areas find it hard. I grew up in Northern, I can tell you all about this.
I don't understand how you jump to roads when we start talking about Indigenous rights. Well, it's just the first example.
Well, roads connect housing. Housing is very important, because ultimately you talk about Indigenous rights, but I get to practical outcomes. And how do we make sure that people are transferring more knowledge from one generation to the next? In charter schools, ACT has done more for that than any other party. Labor shut those down. So these are the kinds of initiatives that make a practical difference. We've done far more than the UN ever has, so I can tell you.
I think that we'll be having ongoing conversations, David, about this. Hey, look, congratulations.
No problem.
I know you put a lot of work into it, and thanks for coming and talking to us, and we'll look forward to talking again.
Awesome. Sorry, I got to run. Bye for now.